Had a stressful week? Try retail therapy. Or how about champagne? A glass of beer? Slice of pizza? Maybe a candle-lit journaling session. Or maybe, how about a hot cup of tea and a bubble bath? A little self-care can really help. Hey, I'm the first to practice self-care. Look, I had all these things available to me, and I bet you have your own self-care practices too. Maybe yours involve a hike. Maybe yours involves a really robust run or a workout at the gym. Maybe it involves, again, something physical or Pilates, yoga, I don't know. A massage even, right? All of these things that we reach for to re-energize, reboot ourselves are helpful practices. And in fact, the term self-care is something that has developed in recent years, because in the past, when we were giving, doing, we may have fallen into a routine of taking care of everyone else's needs and not ourselves, leaving ourselves depleted, exhausted, overwhelmed, and imbalanced. Many years ago, to take any time to replenish yourself was somewhat seen as selfish, right? Because we are there, especially in certain roles in our lives, as a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a sibling, what have you. I certainly felt as a female that sense of giving to others, and then finding time to reclaim for myself was something I needed to balance. And so shifting from selfish to self-care was a healthy kind of rebalancing of energy when the term was first introduced. What I get concerned about today is that many of us may have slid into self-care in a way that is not necessarily healthy and truly being able for us to take charge of our energy and channel that energy to create that which we want to in this world. And there's two dangers I see. Number one, the first danger has to do with this concept that in order to achieve calmness, peace, greater fulfillment, we have to escape from the external conditions that are around us in order to reboot ourselves. That we need to go to that bubble bath. We need to escape to the top of the mountaintop, right? We have to travel long distances and, be in the jungle to really find that calm, because we cannot face into the external circumstances. It's the external circumstances that are causing the stress. Well, where does that leave our sense of personal power? The personal power is outside of ourselves, and the problem is not with those external conditions. They're going to constantly change, and I guarantee you there will be another source of stress. Once you get rid of the first one, then the next one is right there lined up. We're moving too fast out there in the world as a whole to try to control all of those external conditions. And certainly, even if we escape for a little while with the bubble bath or the walk in the woods or what have you, it doesn't help us transform our relationship with those external conditions. So that's my concern number one, that self-care has kind of slipped into this sense of distraction, which ultimately, left overdone, is leading to avoidance rather than taking charge of the energy inherent within the challenges that we face and using that energy to transform ourselves. That's caution number one. Caution number two is, and I think this is fueled by social media and our TikTok, Snapchatable, Twitter focused, Instagrammable culture that, has us honoring these moments of mani-pedis or self-care, or, kind of spotlighting how I'm taking care of me. Unwittingly, or perhaps obviously for some, there's a focus so much on me and my needs that it begins to kind of create a walled off sense of social isolation from the community around us. Me and my needs become so paramount that I begin kind of withdrawing and putting my attention on satisfying those needs, and I put self first to such a degree that we may have overcorrected. And what that does is it creates a story of separation. I am somehow separate from others, when in fact we're actually all intimately kind of connected at a neurological level. Study like mirror neurons, for example, and how humans communicate. There's a lot of research around how we can connect and from a place of empathy truly understand one another, and we're a lot more connected than we really understand. But that story that we are separate, that we are somehow different from others and we need to protect our own needs, ultimately leads to this kind of concept of othering. When we make others different from ourselves, it actually is the root of how we get very polarized in conversation. We justify our actions because we are different from the others and we don't find connection. And it's funny because as humans, our need to connect with others is truly deeply hardwired. Modern society can prompt this feeling of being disconnected in general, though, not just via social media. It's via technology, by the way that we're working virtually these days, even prior to the pandemic. But with the pandemic, it's really exacerbated it. I saw some research that said that before COVID, about 40% of office workers globally felt lonely and disconnected, kind of socially self-isolated. And in the US, 1 in 5 adults said they did not have a single friend at work. So the pandemic may have made this significantly worse, and some studies have showed that up to 50% of workers currently working from home feel socially isolated, disconnected. And again, if they lean into self-care practices that pull them away from others, we're actually disconnecting ourselves even more. Now, there's actual physiological impacts of the social isolation as well. Some studies show that when people feel isolated and disconnected, it can increase our blood pressure, our cortisol levels, it can increase our cholesterol, and our nervous systems kind of go into that fight or flight response. In some studies, they showed that social isolation to a certain degree can be akin and as damaging to us as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, can you imagine, right? The impact. So in the workplace, this is definitely exacerbated right now as we have less face-to-face connection. We may be using a hybrid sort of way of connecting for some time to come. So what can we do? How can we change our relationship with self-care so it's less of a band-aid and less of a actual, ironically, pull into more fight or flight response than actually nurturing us? Number one, we can do the first thing that we know, which is to sense into our physiology. When we feel that sense of stress and overwhelm hitting us, sure, there may be some self-care practices that we have, great. While you're doing those self-care practices, notice what your physiology is telling you. Where do you feel tight sensations? Where do you feel constrictions? What are those sensations sharing with you? Is there a sense of constriction, a sense of heat, a sense of tightness? I don't know. What are the emotions that you're feeling? Again, studies will show us that the more that we can actually name the emotion that we are feeling, it calms our nervous system and gives us a little bit more power. It turns down the volume in the amygdala and moves more energy to the prefrontal cortex. And then if we can therefore identify the thoughts that we're thinking that are leading to the stress, we're now aware of a pattern that we have. The physiology leads to certain feelings, which leads to certain thoughts, which is producing an impulse to take certain action. Then our self-care practices kind of shift the physiology and now give us a new chance to help our shifted physiology lend itself to new feelings, new thoughts, and new actions. That's number one. Number two, the research around connection and social isolation are really clear. The more that we can reach out and be in community with others and shift from self-care to self and community care, the more that we can actually release hormones of oxytocin and a sense of connection with one another. So think about the 5 people that you connect with most often, and think about the sense of relationship and community that you have with them. Ask yourself, What is one thing that I can do today to strengthen that sense of caring for the community around me? That may be in your family, that may be in your workplace, but it's a great place to begin moving beyond self-care to self and community care. Give it a try and let me know how it goes.